Please stand. You may be seated. Good morning, I'm Susan Yaki, and I have the pleasure of serving as the director of the Follette School of Public Affairs. I wanted to welcome this morning our graduates, families, and friends of graduates, Governor Doyle, our faculty, our staff, and our special guests to the 2019 Robert M. La Follette School of Public Affairs graduation ceremony. And a happy Mother's Day to all of our mothers out there as well. This day, This day is a celebration of many years of effort. Indeed, it's a celebration of that effort and your dedication to public service. But I also want to make it an acknowledgement of the people who helped get you here, and most importantly, your family and your friends, many of whom have gathered here to celebrate with us today. Before we begin our formal ceremony, I'd like to introduce three special guests in the audience today: Senator Herb Kohl, Chuck Pruitt, and JoAnne Anton. Senator Kohl is a Milwaukee businessman and philanthropist, and he represented Wisconsin in the U.S. Senate for 14 years. He provided the lead donation for UW-Madison's Kohl Center, and in 2016 created the La Follette School of Public Affairs Herb Kohl Public Service Research Competition. Like Senator Kohl, Chuck Pruitt is a member of our La Follette School Board of Visitors. Pruitt served on the University of Wisconsin System Board of Regents from 2003 to 2016. And I'm told that he considers his work on the 2008 and 2012 Obama for America campaigns some of the highlights of his professional career. JoAnne Anton is the Director of Charitable Giving for Herb Kohl Philanthropies and was Senator Kohl's state director for 18 years. She recently led Governor Tony Evers' transition team. Anton began her career in public service as an assistant to former Milwaukee Mayor John Norquist. At this point, I'd like to recognize JoAnne Anton to come forward and make a special announcement. JoAnne, can you come up?
Thank you, Susan, and once again, happy Mother's Day to all the moms in the room and graduates, all 48 of you. Congratulations on this special day. As Susan mentioned, I'm the director of Herb Kohl Philanthropies, and I've had the privilege of working for Senator Kohl in the Senate, at the Milwaukee Bucks, and now at his foundation. And today he's given me the added privilege of being able to share just a few words with you and some really exciting news. Now, Senator Kohl's career is really this remarkable example of civility, bipartisanship, and servant leadership too. A central theme of his life's work has truly been about other people's lives, caring about other people's lives. And when you think about it, isn't that what public policy is really all about? Now, standing in this room where the assembly does the people's work, it is hard not to realize just how much this really is, and good public policy truly is, about caring about other people's lives. From the economy to healthcare, transportation, jobs, housing, really, every aspect of daily life is affected by public policy decisions. Who makes those decisions? In what manner and by what methods really does matter. Now, if you were to talk to anyone that worked for Senator Kohl, I think each person, to the person, without exception, would tell you working for him was the best job they ever had. Many went on to higher and more financially lucrative positions in federal government or in the private sector. But few could or would ever claim that those future jobs were as fulfilling as the ones they left. I think those of you here today, you La Follette graduates, would understand a big reason for this. Senator Kohl demanded of his staff in Washington and Wisconsin what your La Follette faculty have been demanding of you these last 2 years: the pursuit of evidence-based public policy. Working for Senator Kohl, just like working on a capstone project or on another research team here at La Follette, was never about just finding facts that fit your pre-existing opinions or having your workday determined by what might best serve the need of a campaign donor or a special interest. For 24 years in office, Senator Kohl's staff worked under one simple mantra: doing what's right for the people of Wisconsin. Wherever the evidence would take us, whatever the facts would be, whatever the real circumstances of a constituent's life might entail. That was what guided our actions. That is what guided what we did, what legislation was offered, and how Senator Kohl voted on the floor of the United States Senate. As newly minted graduates of La Follette, you can appreciate that having those expectations come from your boss virtually guarantees that you have a pretty darn good job, one that I and many of my colleagues were very, very fortunate to have. Now, we know these things matter at La Follette. It's where evidence-based research, those on-the-ground experiences, and the explosion of data have all been woven together in you, the graduates, to be able to go forth and craft solutions to the real public challenges we face. From the high-quality faculty to the high-quality students, to the influential research being done, from the service that La Follette provides to legislators and agencies, to the meaningful outreach that extends well beyond the classroom and the campus. We know that La Follette is preparing leaders that are going to make a difference in other people's lives. For all of these reasons, Senator Kohl and all of us with him are big fans of the La Follette School. And as Susan mentioned, he's been a trusted member of the Board of Visitors and has already been a generous supporter of the program. Some of today's graduates, including Alexa DeBoth, Emily Frank, and Lily Schultz, who I want to commend for being one of our interns in Senator Kohl's office long ago. You all served as project assistants working with the La Follette faculty on really great research that was about alleviating poverty, improving healthcare systems, and also understanding food insecurity. And those were all things that were important as part of the public service research competition that Senator Kohl helped launch. Since that investment, we've been really impressed by the collaboration and the impact, and we've witnessed momentum that has helped elevate the school and justifiably, under Susan's leadership, helped elevate the school's ambitions too. So today, we're here to help move those ambitions a little further along. I am truly delighted to be able to announce to you today that Senator Kohl is donating $10 million to the La Follette School's dedication to public outreach, teaching, and research. Senator Kohl, it's an amazing gift that you are doing for the La Follette School. Now, we know this gift is going to allow the school to train more future leaders and engage the public even more and help create even better policy-relevant research. We want this gift to exemplify the school's commitment to nonpartisanship, civility in public debate, and evidence-based policymaking, and we are confident it will. Once again, on behalf of Senator Kohl, thank you for the privilege to deliver this great news, and on behalf of Herb Kohl Philanthropies, congratulations to the scholars and congratulations to the Follette School. Thank you.
Wow. On behalf of the Follette School of Public Affairs, we are so honored and we are so appreciative of this amazing investment in our students and our graduates and our faculty and our amazing staff. We promise to be good stewards of these funds and to go forth and do. I now have the honor of introducing Claire Zautke, who was voted by her graduating class to speak today. Claire received her bachelor's degree from Carthage College in 2010, after which time she was a foreign affairs intern for the US Department of State in France, as well as a field organizer for the Democratic Party here in Wisconsin. From 2011 through 2017, she was a senior executive assistant and then director of community relations for Milwaukee County Executive Chris Abele. In summer of 2018, she worked for the US Department of Transportation. Claire is also the youngest person ever elected to the Milwaukee School Board, serving from 2013 to 2017. At La Follette School, she served as our Student Association secretary and our faculty liaison. Claire also served as my project assistant for this past year. As a result, this is a young leader who I know very well, and I can't think of a better representative of our 2019 class. Claire, the floor is yours.
Thank you for that warm welcome, Susan. Really means a lot. So first, I'd like to say that it is an absolute honor to address you all today. But before we begin, can we take a moment to appreciate what a fine-looking group of people we are here? I mean, yes, like we're really smart and we made this huge accomplishment, yada, 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 but we look good, too. And I feel like that may not get enough attention today, so just want to acknowledge it, yeah? Okay, in all seriousness, my time at La Follette has meant the world to me. And all of you, my classmates, have been at the center of that time. So as I prepared for these remarks, I reflected upon not just all that we've had to learn, all of our hard work and our fun times. I thought about the different paths that led us here to La Follette and to the study of public affairs. So I asked a few friends what inspired them to choose this field. What made you want to study government, politics, policy analysis? What about this work gets your blood flowing? And how did you find it? One friend told me a story about how his grandmother held a public position in her small rural town, and that she worked also at a local post office. My friend told me how he would spend his childhood summer vacations with her, stuffing envelopes, licking stamps, sorting papers. He described to me how the envelopes felt and looked, and the feeling he got when he was working with her. I was enraptured. I could feel the love he had for his grandmother and the fondness he had for those memories. And then he said, from her I learned how one person, even in a small place, can add great value. And if a 75-year-old woman in a town of 1,000 people can make a difference, so can I. And that sent him on a career in public service. Another friend told me that he had a completely opposite experience. Growing up, he did not know what he wanted to do as an adult. He bounced around between different fields of study in college, trying out subjects here and there, waiting for something to speak to his heart or his soul. And at some point, he stumbled into a public affairs class, and his life changed. He saw the world differently, and he saw his place in it differently. He felt inside him that this is what he was looking for. This was the subject that spoke to his heart and his soul. And it's no surprise why. This is a beautiful subject that we chose to study. It's a field that puts community, the public good, and trying to figure out what is right at its center. It strives to create, promote, and implement the ideas that will build a better society. That's what led me here today. I was raised by public servants. My father is a retired firefighter from the city of Milwaukee. My mother, a horticulturist at the county's botanical gardens. I like to say that my father worked to make the city a safer place, my mother to make it more beautiful. I know that line is fire, so feel free to go, I was raised to believe in putting my neighbors before myself, and that there's no nobler calling than to be of service. That theme, the idea of being of service, appeared in the stories of not just the two classmates I already told, but that I heard from everyone with whom I spoke. Another friend said he did not want to live in the theoretical, not just think about what could or should be, but to be one of the people who actually works to solve the problems that other people merely study. Yet another simply said she wanted her life's work to have a real impact. And after we talked for a bit about our histories, our conversations inevitably turned to reminiscing about our more recent past, our time at La Follette, and what would come next. And this made me think about the idea of change. As graduate students, we've been through a lot lately, a lot of change. The transition to graduate school is a big change, whether you came right from college or were making a mid-career shift. Some of us moved a few blocks or towns over. Others moved across state lines, leaving behind the lives that we'd built and loved in favor of the unknown. We lived with new roommates, and we met new friends, people who quickly filled the little spaces of our hearts that missed our homes and old companions. And we learned new things. We took courses with mysterious and sexy titles like Advanced Statistical Methods of Public Policy Analysis. Still sends a shiver up my spine. Or Comparative and National Social Policy, or Federal Budget and Tax Policy and Administration. We pushed ourselves to learn things outside of our comfort zones. Heck, I took a math class for the first time since George W. Bush was president. And I'm not talking about the end of his presidency. We also changed and grew as people. We learned to support each other in new ways and to quickly build deep, close friendships and relationships. We learned to manage our time, to work together as teams, and to solve problems. And now, at the end of these all too quick years, we face another change. We'll be away from this close group of 50 people with whom we've spent all of our time for the past 2 years. The people with whom we've lived, eaten, studied, laughed, cried, definitely not during CBA, sang, or in my case, rapped karaoke, leaned on, learned from, and grown with. It's going to be hard, and I'm going to miss your faces, and I'm hoping after this you'll still miss mine. But even though this change will be hard, it means that we get to go out into the world to affect change. We get to be of service. That desire for affecting change and being of service that comes from a place of love of community, love of country, of loving our neighbors as ourselves. It's within our reach. It's what's next. It's ours for the taking. And thanks to La Follette, we can. So to the school's staff and faculty, and on behalf of the La Follette School of Public Affairs class of 2019, I say thank you. And to my classmates, I say, go forth and do great things. Thank you, and on Wisconsin.
I really like her. It is my pleasure to introduce Assistant Professor Rourke O'Brien, who is chosen by our graduating class to serve as the faculty speaker. Professor O'Brien is a sociologist by training who received his PhD from Princeton University and spent 2 years at Harvard University on a postdoctoral fellowship studying health policy. O'Brien's research focuses primarily on state and local tax policy and its relationship between poverty and economic policy. O'Brien is an incredibly popular teacher at our school, and he is well loved by his students, and he's well loved by his faculty and staff colleagues as well. Rourke?
Thank you, Susan. Morning, everyone. So I want to start by offering my congratulations to the La Follette School class of 2019 and to express my sincere thanks for the honor of being selected as your faculty speaker at commencement. It's a real honor, one that comes with the privilege of getting to give you one last lecture before you depart. I've got to admit, I'm a little bit nervous to be giving you one last lecture without my trusty PowerPoint presentation with 87 slides and 12 different learning objectives. I was also told by a few of you that this wouldn't be the appropriate venue to make one last stand on my soapbox about the three-factor formula, or to plead the distinction between marginal and effective tax rates. Apparently, that's not content of interest to a general audience. Therefore, today, I've decided to offer my reflections not as your tax professor, but as a fellow millennial. Yes, look it up. Though I'm a good bit older than most of you, we are technically part of the same generation. I'm just an elder millennial. Someone who sat where you sat not too long ago, pondering what life would be like after graduate school. And today, I only have 3 learning objectives left: service, gratitude, and wonder. Ready? Objective 1, service. Let's face it, as Claire said, you're here today because you want to change the world. You want to make the world a better place. You're helpers. You're part of a helping class. Every society has one. Indeed, society was built by helpers. One of the most fun parts of this job is when students come into my office to talk about potential careers. Sometimes one of you would come into my office and immediately gush about your love of transportation policy, or health policy, or education policy. And I would gush right back, awesome, fantastic, I love all that stuff too. Yet others would come into my office in a panic, confessing with a sense of shame they didn't know exactly what they wanted to do yet. They weren't sure what policy area to focus on or what social problem they wanted to solve. Those are my favorite conversations. You're a generalist, I'd exclaim. You just want to help. Fantastic. We need more of those too. Sitting behind your topical interests in transit or healthcare or development or governance, you all share the same vocation or calling to serve. It's worth taking the time now to reflect on that calling. It's what led you on your journey through life thus far. It led you here today, and it'll be what drives you forward for a lifetime. Now is the time to make explicit your personal philosophy of service, to ask yourself, to force yourself to put into words why service is so appealing to you, why you are a helper. What is this strange but powerful and magical force that caused you to spend years of your youth mastering econometrics, performing cost-benefit analyses, or creating performance management metrics? These aren't things most 20-somethings find interesting or worth spending their time on. But you do, and it's important to be able to articulate why, if only to yourself. Why do you care? In the months that years to come, you'll be embarking on careers in public service. And I hate to break it to you, but the day-to-day for most of you probably won't be particularly glamorous. Spreadsheets, meetings, reports, probably followed by revised spreadsheets and more meetings. There will likely be points in your career where you feel like your work has no meaning. It's in those moments when you need to double down. When your work feels like it has no meaning, it's on you to bring meaning back to your work. Don't forget you're here to help. It's what drives you. Articulating a personal philosophy of service is what makes possible to keep going, to continue to serve even when it's hard to see the big picture. Okay, check. Learning objective 1, service. Learning objective 2, gratitude. Practicing gratitude is always a good idea, and it feels good. Each of you is undoubtedly grateful to the others in your cohort for helping make your La Follette experience so impactful. Why don't we take a few moments right now to turn to the person sitting next to you and express gratitude for who they are and what they brought to your La Follette experience. Go ahead, right now.
I'm thankful.
See, doesn't that feel good? Awesome. Finding your way to gratitude is critical for a life of public service. Helping society is often a thankless job. A strange feature of the public sector is that citizens rarely notice or acknowledge when things work, but you'll always hear about it when they don't. This means that we, as public servants, must take extra effort to take care of each other, to express gratitude to those serving the public and doing the work we see that others might not. Another incredibly fun and interesting part of my job has been serving as a professional reference for many of you. On any given day, I'll be sitting at my desk, and out of the blue, I will get a call from DPI, or DHS, or DCF, or a federal agency, or a consulting firm, or a nonprofit. And on the other end of the line is another helper, often themselves a La Follette alum, who's been tasked with hiring. Before I let him or her launch into the usual questions, does Lily play nice with others? Does Kyle know how to write? I insist on learning more about the actual substance of their work, of the work their organization does. That insistence is often met with a bit of surprise and hesitation, but quickly turns into a lively conversation filled with energy and passion and a sense of mission. Our office is working to improve the efficacy of the compensation fund for victims of violent crime in Wisconsin. Our office is engaged in audits of the Medicaid program to ensure it is spending taxpayer dollars effectively. Our organization has worked to increase the number of mental health professionals to meet growing needs in northern Wisconsin. After asking many questions and hearing all the details, I then do two simple things. I express gratitude for the work they are doing, and I thank them for their service. Folks on the other end of the line are sometimes stunned, but they're always happy and full of pride when they get the chance to share what they do and reflect on why it matters. I also think putting them in a good mood probably helps the chances you guys get the job. As helpers, we must express gratitude to each other, in large part because only we can see, understand, and appreciate the importance of this work, of everyone playing their part to make society run. As you embark on your careers in public service, find ways to express gratitude to your new colleagues. It means a lot. And it means even more coming from fellow helpers who might actually understand how hard the work is, how impossible the task may be, and how important it is that we try to get it right. Okay, so objective 1 was service. Objective 2 is gratitude. That brings us to a third and final learning objective, wonder. Wonder is the most difficult virtue for a public servant to cultivate, and the most essential. Why? Because we need wonder to transcend setbacks or moments of failure, to transcend the politics of the moment. Public service is hard. Even with a personal philosophy of service and the gratitude of our peers, each and every one of us will be tempted to give up, to languish in the futility of it all, to become cynical. The only way to combat that darkness is to develop a practice of wonder, to be able to fill oneself with an overwhelming sense of awe. So where can you find and practice wonder? For helpers like us, potential sources of awe-inspiring wonder are all around us. For me, I find wonder in great feats of engineering, bridges, tunnels, subways, in monumental buildings like this, and in the everyday. Some mornings, if I felt unmotivated before coming to give a lecture on the property tax, I'd stand in the shower and reflect on the wonder that is running water. That thanks to some group of helpers long ago, sitting behind those knobs marked hot and cold is an elaborate network of pipes through which clean water is made available to me in an instant. This is pure magic. And it's not just infrastructure. Universal public education, universal suffrage, Social Security, Medicare, these are audacious ideas that became transformative acts for society. As public servants, we need wonder to transcend ourselves and connect with the generations of helpers that went before and on whose handiwork we stand today. Literally, standing on the streets and sidewalks that one set of helpers worked to design and build, while others were building our great university and the institutions of state. These human achievements should fill you with a sense of wonder. Your people did this. Helpers did this. Find your personal font of wonder and use that feeling to guard against cynicism as motivation to keep pushing forward and dreaming big, inspired by the awesome work of helpers who came before, and comforted in knowing your work will be carried on by generations of helpers to come. When it appears progress is impossible to achieve today, revel in how far we've come and do your best to make progress possible in the future. So, dear graduates, my wish for you as a fellow millennial helper is that you develop your personal philosophy of service, that you take the time to express gratitude to others like you who are just out there trying to help, and that you find a personal sense of wonder so that you never lose hope. Those are my last learning objectives for each of you. Thank you for dedicating your life to service, and thank you for giving me so many more personal examples of wonder for me to draw on for the rest of my life and career. Congratulations, the Follette School Class of 2019.
I'm delighted to introduce former Governor Jim Doyle as our 2019 La Follette School graduation speaker. Governor Doyle served as the 44th governor of Wisconsin from 2003 to 2011. After graduating from UW-Madison, Governor Doyle and his lovely wife Jessica, who's with us today, joined the Peace Corps and worked in Tunisia. Doyle went on to earn his law degree, using it to help disadvantaged populations. Doyle's early political career included time as the Dane County District Attorney, followed by 12 years as Wisconsin's Attorney General. In recent years, Governor Doyle has continued to give back. In particular, the La Follette School has had the pleasure of calling him a faculty member over the last few years. In fact, I think several of you had the chance to learn from Governor Doyle. On a personal note, Governor Doyle has been a wonderful mentor to me, and I greatly value his advice and counsel. I'm pleased to yield the floor to Governor Jim Doyle.
Well, thank you, Susan, for that very kind introduction. And I better say a couple of things. So first of all, I apologize to my students out there thinking, do we have to listen to this whole spiel one more time? But you apparently do before you can get the document. Second, I thought as I'm sitting in here, in this chamber, I delivered 8 State of the State addresses, 4 budget addresses. I don't know how many of you have been to a State of the State, but it's a moment where every single seat is filled, the TV cameras are all over, everything is out there. But a governor gets to stand here with, and you've seen these all when you watch Congress, with the leaders of the legislature sitting behind you, who in my case were mostly Republicans. I had a couple of years with Democrats. And over time, I got better at it. So I hope I may fall into a few habits here, because the governor gets to be sort of the conductor, and the Republicans were on this side of the aisle and the Democrats on this, and I could get this side to stand and that side to sit. Then I could throw them some piece of information that just the Republicans couldn't sit down for, you know? I mean, we want to educate all our kids, you know? You can't sit down for that, right? So I would just kind of throw that out there and see, would they stand? And then you sort of look at the leaders back here. And over time, as you got more, as I got, and I assume other governors would get more familiar with this process, by the 8th I could pretty much come in and conduct the orchestra as I wanted, have one side up, one side down, and so on. So I apologize if I start doing that and trying to get some of you to go one way or another. This is a wonderful day, and to the graduates and your families, to the wonderful faculty of the Follette School, and the staff that has, thank God you have such a wonderful staff here, because I wouldn't know where to park or how to do any of the IT work or do any of it. So I thank you for all of that. It is really a great day, and as you mark another milestone. First of all, my wife Jessica is here, and I drove down from Eau Claire early this morning, where we had been with our grandson in an opera last night, and both of our sons, thank God, or I'd be very angry, called in to say Happy Mother's Day to their mother. So I hope you've all done that, if your mother is not with you today. I have really enjoyed my time at the Follette School, and have come to appreciate the strength, as I did as governor, and would rely on the strength of the faculty, of the analysis, and I have really come to appreciate the quality of the students as I've been able to see them over the years. I really want to add my special recognition to one of Wisconsin's greatest heroes, Senator Herb Kohl. You have seen here today, when you talk about all the qualities that Rourke mentioned of the kind of values and public service that you bring, that is exemplified in Senator Kohl. He was a tremendously successful business person in Wisconsin, turned that to become a tremendously successful public servant. And his generosity has helped thousands of teachers in this state, schools in this state, or local organizations doing good work. And he has, particularly in recent years, become focused on the Follette School, and that's all very good for you. But Senator Kohl, thank you for all that you've done. And since many of you are a little younger than me, I hope you all recognize he was the longtime owner of the Milwaukee Bucks. The Milwaukee Bucks are in Milwaukee today because of when he made the decision to sell the team, he insisted that it be to a owner that would keep this team in Milwaukee and would build the new arena, and look where we are today. So thank you, Senator. And to Chuck Pruitt, who you had a brief little introduction of, but Chuck was a regent for many years. I was a little disappointed to hear that the highlights of his career were the Obama elections of 08 and 012, because he was critical to my two elections for governor in 02 and 06, but I guess I understand there's a little ranking going on here. And he served as a wonderful member of the Board of Regents and as president of the Board of Regents for several years as well. And JoAnne, who has really become intricately involved in the Follette School, really understands what is going on. Thank you for all that you have done for us as well. Well, I am really, I am always so encouraged when I teach a class at the Follette School and see the people that are coming along who are committing their lives to public service. This is something that I have tried, Jessica and I have tried to spend our lives doing, as in the Peace Corps. And coming out of law school, I spent 3 years in legal services on the Navajo, in the Navajo Nation, Chinle, Arizona, as district attorney, as attorney general, and ultimately as governor. None of them as important as what my wife did for all of those years as a teacher and educator in Wisconsin. But I learned a few lessons along the way. And I want to tell you a little story that I hope I may be more thick-headed than all of you. It took some pretty dramatic moments for some pretty serious lessons to sink into me about what public service is about. When I came out of law school, I went to the Navajo Nation, Chinle, Arizona. If any of you have been through there, this is an area that's as big as the state of West Virginia, 300,000 Navajo people. The Navajo language, most of my clients spoke only Navajo, certainly any person over 45, 50 years of age was a Navajo speaker. I went there and I was going to save the world. We had been in the Peace Corps for several years. I was imbued, and now I had actual skills, as you now have. I was a lawyer. I was going to go out there. I brought a great lawsuit. My client's name was Little Red House. Little Red House had bought a vehicle from a very dishonest car dealer in Blanding, Utah, which is right on the border of the reservation. It was a credit contract that was all messed up. The truck broke down. Little Red House, who lived in a traditional Navajo hogan, many miles off a paved road, couldn't speak English, came in. We would work through interpreters all the time. And he showed me the contract. He didn't really even know what was on the contract, but I was an expert in the truth in lending law. And the truth in lending law requires proper disclosures of interest rates and so on. There wasn't a contract in those days that I couldn't find a problem with. And this contract had many violations of the truth in lending law. And the beauty of it was, if you had violated the law, you were entitled to $1,000 liquidated damages, just $1,000. If you could walk in and show that that contract violated the law, you got $1,000. I had it made because I knew every contract that this dealership had sent out was in violation. So there were thousands of contracts, all of which the person was entitled to $1,000. And so I brought a class action lawsuit sitting in my little office in Chinle, Arizona. It was worth millions of dollars. It was going to bankrupt the car dealer. It was justice being served. So we went down the legal process. I went up to federal court in Salt Lake City and tried the case in the majestic federal courthouse there and won it. And then they appealed, and 6 months, 9 months, a year later, we're in front of the Court of Appeals in Denver. I mean, I was maybe 2 years out of law school arguing in front of the Court of Appeals in Denver. This is what I had trained for. This is what Harvard Law School taught me to do. I was kicking their butts, and we were going to have justice served. Well, the Court of Appeals didn't see it quite the way I did, and so we got reversed and go back to the trial court. And now I try to explain through an interpreter to Little Red House that we still have some more work to do. Now we're probably 2 years plus since his truck broke down. And Little Red House, this wonderful man, when we had gone to Salt Lake City, by the way, for the trial, he had never been in a city with cars like this, so we would have to stand at a street corner, and then I would lead Little Red House across the street, walking into the courthouse. When I think back on what Little Red House was seeing and what he knew, it was a different world. So after years of this, and I know we're going to win again, and I actually had a case, some of you have been to law school or lawyers, in the Federal Reporter series that had my name on it. It was just great things happening. He turned to me through the interpreter and said, "When am I going to get a truck back?" And that's the moment that I really appreciated, I think, in many ways, what public service was about. This poor guy had come to see me because his truck had broke down. I had spent 2.5 years in a noble legal battle on behalf to make sure justice universally was being done. This Little Red House had lived without a truck. I'm telling you, the dealer would have given him 15 trucks to get rid of this lawsuit. And yet, I had just pursued this case. But this was about listening to somebody, about being humble, about listening to who my client was and what my client needed, and what the client was looking to have happen. Not what it was going to do for my career or where I was going to be, but what it was going to do for him. I had made a terrible mistake. We settled the case in about 2 weeks. He got a brand new pickup truck. And it all went away, and my $1 million case to do justice had faded away into the air. But I had really done something that I was supposed to do at the beginning. I was supposed to provide basic service to somebody who came to me for help. And so I hope what I learned from that is how critical it is to have humility in your service. And God knows, as we watch politics in this country today, how much a little humility might help all of us. I know it's hard to believe, some of my students have heard me talk about it, but I practice hot yoga 3 or 4 times a week. And there's a pose for you yoga people about humble warrior. And I just love the name of humble warrior, because to me, that's what public service should be about. It should be about being a warrior for justice and truth and good government and honesty, but being a humble warrior. I want to, if I can, suggest that in Senator Kohl, we have seen a leader that has exemplified that as much as any leader we have seen in the state of Wisconsin in many, many years, of a humble warrior, fighting for the right thing, but doing it with humility. So the other thing I've noticed with La Follette students is you know facts and figures. And as my students know, I see part of my job with La Follette is to tell you that those facts and that analysis is all nice, but if you don't appreciate the politics of this situation, they're sort of not going to get you anywhere. But it is also really critical for you to focus on this great ability that you now have. And I'm so impressed when I read the papers and the projects that are done for me, just how clearly and concisely every single student has written about how to approach the policy, what the policy means, and how to quantify the analysis of it. You have learned that very well. It is also critical, though, that facts and factual analysis without values can be a pretty dangerous thing. And history is replete with instances where people believing in facts and factual analysis are going to be taking it forever. I just read an article, you probably have all seen them, about the racial genetic work that was being done in the early part of the 20th century by people who truly believed they were following the genetic facts that in their minds had proved to them that certain races of people were inferior. And that was a generally held scientific concept. Those were supposedly the facts, but they really weren't facts, as it turned out. They were values that were hiding themselves behind facts. And so it is really critical for you to bring that good, clear, concise analysis that you are so able to do. But it is also obviously very important that you do that with values. In my class, we talk a lot about political messaging, about how to construct a good political argument, about how to try to figure out who you're trying to address and what the issues are and how to approach them and how to communicate that most effectively. And it struck me this year as I was thinking about how we do that is that true anymore? Or you just go out and make up stories and call your opponents the worst name you can, and that seems to have become a pretty effective way to politically communicate. But it is critical that as you move on now into your roles as public service, that you don't succumb to that you make sure that the political debate is one that is based on facts and is based on good values and is based on honesty and isn't just based on what a tweet can say or what a good TV soundbite can say that is the most offensive thing you can say about another person. It is critical that the kind of civility that you've had in the classes at La Follette, the kind of debates and discussion that I know have happened in my class and happened in all classes, that you continue in that mode. And finally, let me say this. It seems to me we've left plenty of issues on the table for you to address. That those of us who have come along before have solved some good problems, and you look from the 60s on of how we've opened up opportunities in this country, addressed racial and sexual orientation for better or worse in some ways, but there are plenty, and it is a rapidly changing world. And so it's not just the basic knowledge you've learned, it is your ability to analyze the next problems. I know, I was grading papers this last week, and just in the issues that in my class, global warming, a sensible and fair criminal justice system, health care, immigration, changes in those topics are the ones that are addressed, and those are enormous topics that are confronting this country and this world and that need bright minds. The list goes on, how we handle immigration, how we handle the rapidly changes in education and others. in our society, in our world. And you have to do this in a world that is changing so rapidly, where technology is giving us access to information. I mean, when I had to do a research paper, we actually went to a library and had to look around in the stacks to find books and hopefully find a fact. You have it in 2 seconds, the facts that you need. And that's a tremendous advantage, but it is also one that is changing our world so fast, I'm not sure, in fact, I'm quite sure, we don't know where we're going to end up from it all. The ability to communicate. As I came up, you better really talk nicely to the newspaper reporters and to the editors and to make sure that, because that's how the message came through. Now the message comes through directly. And how you handle the new and direct forms of communication that we have, and how we restore some, or how we put some sense of ethics and value into those forms of communication are enormously important challenges for you. And at least from where my life has been in politics, a political system that really needs help. It needs, in many ways, to be restructured. It needs to be reformed. It needs to be much more responsive to the actual needs that the people of this state and this country and this world have. So that's all you have to worry about. Add a few, population changes, all the things that are going on. But more than ever, we need bright minds. We need people with good, solid educational backgrounds. We need people with strong values. We need people who can lead us through that time. President Obama has a lot of wonderful phrases, but one that I've always liked was, and he gave this as a big rally. You have to imagine this in Obama speak, but just in the words are important. Take off your bedroom slippers. Put on your marching shoes. Shake it off. Stop complaining. Stop grumbling. Stop crying. We are going to press on. We have work to do. La Follette grads, you have work to do. Thank you, non-Wisconsin.
Thank you, Governor Doyle. I now want to invite our school's LISA president, Jennifer Johnson, to come forward and present gifts to our speakers on behalf of our student association. Jennifer. Jennifer, thank you for your leadership this year. At graduation, we also have the honor of announcing, for the first time, 3 student awards. The first is the Director's Achievement Award, which recognizes a student for his or her outstanding academic record. The major criterion for the award is grade point average, but the graduating student also must demonstrate evidence of being an outstanding public policy thinker and communicator. This year's winner was selected for being a major contributor to the La Follette School's intellectual and student life as well. I'm delighted to share for the first time that this year's Director's Award winner is Benjamin McBride. Ben, please come forward.
Thank you so much.
That guy's gonna do big things, people. Next, I have the honor of sharing the winner of this year's Penniman Prize. Clara Penniman was the founder and director of the La Follette School's predecessor, the Center for the Study of Public Policy and Administration. The La Follette School presents the Penniman Prize to a graduating student who has written the most outstanding paper while at the La Follette School. Our faculty nominate papers that best demonstrate the school's writing and analytic skills. This year's paper was nominated by my colleague, Professor David Weimer. The paper, which was submitted for Dr. Weimer's policy analysis class, was entitled Ending Child Sex Trafficking and was written by Abigail Sweats. Abby, can you please come forward? Next, I'd like to invite my colleague, Professor Greg Nemeth, forward. Greg is going to announce our Peoria Prize.
So the Peoria Prize recognizes the best paper in science and public policy and was set up by Emmanuel R. Peoria and Nora Khan Peoria. And this year's paper was nominated by Professor Tim Smeating. It's titled Closing the Digital Divide, Policy Problems, Goals, and Alternatives. It was written by Tyler Lee Gross. Tyler, please come forward.
Now to the awarding of our degrees. My colleague, Mo O'Connor, our school's Senior Student Services Coordinator, will announce each student's name, while Steve Kulig, our school's Associate Director, will help hand out diplomas. Mo?
Mark Benda. Ari Brown. Michaela Calise. Avnish Chandra. Alexa DeBoth. Ben Diederich. Chet Edelman. Claire Erickson. Elizabeth Elaine Erickson. Emily Beth Frank. Kirsten Frobaum. Tyler Gross. Jonathan Harper. Amanda Haina. Signe Janoska Betty. Jennifer Johnson. Jamie Kane. Nikolai Marshall Kapustin. Madeline Kuhlbeck. Martin Vincent Lamps. Patrick Landers. Amy Maniola. Cassandra Martinchek. Brittany Mall. Benjamin McBride. Madeline Morgan. Noah Roberts. Sophia Siskind Rogers. Marisa Catherine Ross. Elise Charlotte Samaray. Sarah Schuett. Lillian Riel Schultz. Brandon Sanger. David Singer. Kyle Stanley. Hannah Stevens. Vanessa Studer. Abigail Victoria Sweats. Jonathan Vanucci. Eva Vasiljevich. Craig Bruwink. William Wallow. Christopher William Webb. Ayal Natan Weiner Kaplow. Liz White. Shushan Shu. And Claire Zaki.
Graduates, please move your tassels from the right to the left. And one more time. You know, I love the word commencement. Commencement is a time for new beginnings. And we're delighted to be sending you forth with new skills, new insights, and new obligations. We want you to do good in our world. But please don't forget about us either. Please stay connected with the La Follette School. We want you, we need you to help us mentor the next generation of great public and nonprofit leaders. I want to remind everyone that there is a 1 p.m. reception today in Brink Lounge. So 1 p.m. in Brink Lounge at 701 East Washington Avenue. Please join our graduates in celebrating. And with that, thank you all for coming today.